Good morning, people of the cardboard, and welcome back to Fun Decks. Now, sorry for the delay on this video. I'd already recorded, uploaded, and then found out there was an issue with the file, and so I just needed to find a second to re-record. So we have gone 3 new Enneacraft cards coming out Blazing Dominion. Now, this is a big deal because typically we've been getting 2 cards for each archetype from side sets. So Justice Hunters, we only got 2 of those follow-up cards for like K9 and Draco Tail and Yummy. But now we're getting 3. So we already got 3 Heck-A-Hand cards released last week. They were okay. And we should expect 3 Cool Tunes, which is a big deal because that deck is pretty exciting for at least Genesis and maybe TCG stuff. Now, in the middle, we have Enneacraft. This is kind of an archetype that, it's interesting. I don't think it's really... The problem is, obviously, it can't be played in Genesis, but it's maybe not good enough to be played in TCG. But with 3 new cards, maybe they can change that. So let's get into it. So we have, okay, I guess this is Trito Enneacraft, except Patsia. Oh my gosh, this deck, someone just smashed their head on a keyboard for every name. It's level 1 Earth Machine, just like all of them. Pendulum effect, attack 100, defense 1000, pendulum scale 0. So the pendulum deck, you only use the second pendulum deck this card's name once per turn. Each time a monster is flip face up, place 1 EC counter on this card that is relevant because this deck burns with the field spell during the end phase based on the number of counters. You can pay 9, reveal 3 Enneacraft cards, and then your opponent randomly picks 1 to add to your hand. That's the same effect that all the tiny Enneacrafts have. So that's nice. I mean, it's basically more of the same. All right, and then monster effect. You can reveal this card in your hand. Special one monster from your hand face down or in face down defense position. You cannot special in the turn you activate this effect except face down defense position. This is again the clause that every Enneacraft monster has. And this is not a once per turn, so you can reveal just this one and set your entire hand. And then when your opponent activates a card effect that includes an effect that sets a card, you can change this face down card to face up defense position, add 1 Enneacraft card from your deck to the hand, and then flip, destroy 1 spell trap opponent controls if you do special monster from your hand to face down defense position. Now this is very, very odd. All right, so in case you don't remember, all the little ones basically have clauses that flip them up, and when you do, you add an Enneacraft card. So this is consistent. But this clause is super niche. It's a effect that sets a card. There really aren't that many. Like set rotations 1, obviously RB, the deck that we all think about. Their new Link 3, the dark one, has an effect to set a trap from deck or grave. But besides that, like there really aren't that many effects that do this, and it's not super consistent. So you will almost never proc this. Now the flip is cool, the flip effect. So destroying a spell trap, the deck didn't have that. They had like popping monsters, dealing with graveyard and stuff. But spell traps were not really an area where this deck could like do anything. So I like that, and I like that you can special summon additional one face down. I'm not sure if the other ones actually had that additional effect. I think it might have just been destroy a monster or do something. So this is powerful. The problem is it'll just never do anything on its own. You're going to be relying on your effects to flip them up, which isn't the end of the world, but is kind of iffy. So I think with this card, I feel comfortable giving it a 1 out of 5, calling it a flop. It's not bad. It definitely could see some play just to have an extra name because like that pendulum effect is still good. But yeah, I just think this flip effect is too niche and it really kills it for me. Let me know if there's a, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe decks do use this more than I thought, but yeah, so 1 out of 5 for that one. So we have Enneacraft Atilspia. So this is the giant spider. It's a level 9 light machine pendulum effect. Flip, of course, and this is has blue eye stats, a 3k attack, 25 defense, pendulum skill 0. So each time a monster's flip face up, place a counter on this card. That's consistent. And then at the end of the battle phase, if you have an Enneacraft card in your Ultra Pendulum Zone, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls with less attack than this card, destroy it. That's what all the big ones have. So it's fine. And almost never comes up. But it doesn't hurt. And then the monster effect, you can reveal this card in your hand. Special summon 1 monster from your hand in face down defense position. You cannot special summon the turn you activate this card except in face down defense position. So again, every Enneacraft has that clause. But the big one, the flip effects. So when your opponent activates a card effect as Chainlink 3 or higher quick effect, you can change this face down card to face up defense position, negate the activation of your opponent's cards and effects activated before this effect in the chain, and if you do, destroy the negated cards. That's huge. That's really, really cool as interruption. But let's read the rest. And then after this card was flipped face up, while it is in the monster zone, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of their own cards and effects. Okay, so this is really, really nifty. So before the deck had some interruption, they had like cards that can be activated when your opponent activates effect or activates effect in response to your stuff. But like this card, for the first time, like it is can actually negate your opponent's stuff multiple things, which is fantastic. This is a very rare type of negation. There's only a couple cards in the entire game that has like this clause of like negating multiple effects in a chain. I think there's one of the old Chain Strike trap cards that like can negate everything in the chain, including your cards. And then there's like a Tachyon counter trap, I think, if I remember correctly, that can negate, again, multiple things in the chain. But this is very rare. And I think even those, they tend to be like Chain Link 4 or higher. Something like Chain Link 3 is not that hard to do, right? That is, you can even get this off of multiple effects triggering at the same time, right? So if, for example, you use like a Dark Hole to destroy your board and your opponent's board, and like they have 3, effects that would chain. If they activate 3, this goes. I mean, obviously that one, that precise situation won't work. You'd have to use like a Regeki because obviously this has to be set, but it doesn't matter, right? Let's say you set this card, use Regeki, and your opponent activates 3 effects. You flip this up and negate all of them, which is huge. That's really, really cool. I think that similarly in this additional effect, your opponent not being able to change other stuff does disrupt certain combos. One that comes to mind, I know this is niche, but like the Azamina with the Wanted, right? So they would use Azamina to try to send the Wanted card from the hand, but then they would just chain the Wanted so that way they would get maximum value. Stuff like that comes up, but even if it doesn't, even if it's like, your opponent has, a board full of spell traps and you activate Harpies, Feather Duster, they have to choose which one they want to activate and they only get the one. So it's like, this is really nice as an interruption. It seems a little more niche than I think it might read a little more niche, but it actually, I think, comes up a lot. And this is, I think, a very powerful interruption that the deck didn't really have. They had a couple cards that could had a Book of Moon effect to just like flip all your opponent's stuff face down, which is fine, but not great into links and stuff. But this is a really powerful effect. And what's nice again is that you don't need to reveal this card to summon itself. You can reveal any of them. So your opponent can't guarantee that this card isn't face down. And so they always have to kind of act like it is. So just the fact that this exists does make your opponent have to play differently. I like this card a lot. I know it's bold. I know it's maybe a little extreme, but I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 on the Fun Decometer because I think the deck needed methods of interacting with your opponent, and this does that. It does that very, very well, and I like the idea of multiple negates. All right. And so then that puts in the fantastic category with a PH. Okay, and then lastly, we have Enneacraft Reset, normal spell card. You can only activate one card or a card with this card's name once per turn. Place one Enneapolis. This is their field spell. From your deck or graveyard face up in your field zone, or if you already control Enneapolis, you can negate the effects of face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of cards in your pendulum zone instead. The field spell is cool. I think it does a lot of burn in the end phase, which comes up, but I think it has some additional effects to help you recur resources and draw and stuff. So it's fine. But it's really, and it's nice that it has the do utility of getting you the field spell, or if you already have it, it's just a non-targeting, kind of almost Dark Ruler no more, but for only maximum of 2 monsters. All right, and then if your opponent activates a card effect while this card's in your graveyard, you can banish this card, change Enneacraft monsters you control to face down defense position up to the number of cards in your pendulum zone. Okay, so this is weird. So again, it's basically like a non-targeting Book of Moon stuff to return your stuff down, at least 1, maybe 2, or maybe 0 if you have nothing in your pendulum zone. But the cool part about this is that most of these flip effects on Enneacraft cards are not actually hard once per turns. So for example, this card is not a once per turn, the new spider one. So your opponent, even if they theoretically have dealt with this once, if you have another face down, it could be another copy. Or if you use this to reset this card or any of your Enneacraft cards, so now they have to worry about that again. It makes it so much harder to play through interaction when you can't just force your opponent to burn, the flip or negate. So I like this a lot. I think this card is interesting. It's powerful. I think the problem is that the graveyard effect is more intriguing than the actual activation effect. I think it's nice to get the field spell, and I'm sure this could see some play. But the other effect, the monster effect negate, is obviously a turn 2 card. So I wish this was a quick play. I know, maybe I'm asking too much, but if this was an interaction, I think that'd be really cool because this deck just doesn't have that. It doesn't really have fantastic methods of stopping your opponent outside of your flip effects. I get that's the point, but give them something. Give them a trap. This deck doesn't even have a trap. I don't know. I think this card is fine. I think I'm going to give it a, let's go, this one's hard. I'm going to go 2 out of 5. I think it's cute that you can flip your stuff face down, but the entire point of this deck is your opponent doesn't know what you have face down. And so it's just objectively like, it's so much worse when they know that this card's here. They'll just avoid doing Chain Link 3 or higher, right? And like that's nice because it means if you activate like Chain Link 2, they're never going to respond to things, right? Like that's fine, but like you don't even have Chain Link 2 effects in this deck. You don't have quick plays really. So it's not like if you had a quick play Searcher, you could just activate effect, chain the Searcher, and if your opponent tries to Ash, you can flip this up to negate that. That's fine, that's cool, but you don't have that, so it's very weird. But yeah, so I think a 2 out of 5 is warranted. Putting it in the, I think that puts it in the fine category. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. That's what I feel about these cards. Let me know if you disagree in the comments down below. If you are an Enneacraft player, I'd be interested to hear your opinion. I feel, looked at the deck, I thought it was intriguing, but I never really tinkered with it. So if I'm wrong, please let me know. I love hearing negative feedback. Besides that, I'm really excited to get the Cool Tune cards. They should be coming out soon. Stay tuned for that. If you're not, get subscribed. Ring that notification bell or whatever people say, and I will try to post that as soon as possible. And then we should hopefully be getting that TCG exclusive Dino DNA archetype in the next week or two. In case you haven't watched my videos, I've been talking about every single time because I'm super excited for that. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. So it's Fun Decks. Signing out. Bye.